Good morning. Thank you all very much for being here to join us today. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge some of the officials that we have with us. Senator Joe Griffo is here, Assembly Member Al Sturpey, and Assembly Member Anthony Brindisi. Howard Zemsky is here, President and CEO of Empire State Development, with Roanne DiStito, the Commissioner of New York State's Office of General Services. Daniel Goddard, the Director of Information Directorate, Air Force Research Laboratory. Mayor Jackie Izzo from the City of Rome. Larry Gilroy, President and CEO of Gilroy, Kernan and Gilroy, and the REDC co-chair. And our REDC co-chair from Onondaga County and the Central New York region, Rob Simpson. Welcome all of you, and thank you for joining us today. This morning, we're going to hear from my partner, Anthony Pacenti, the County Executive of Oneida County, and then Craig Marshankowski from Griffin Sensors, and then we'll have the opportunity to hear from Governor Cuomo, and then NASA Program Manager Ron Johnson, and then Craig will come back up and give us a demonstration of the technology that's being developed here in upstate New York. And we are delighted to welcome Governor Cuomo here today. Governor Cuomo has really been a champion for upstate. He has completely changed the relationship between state government and upstate New York, and we're all benefiting from it, particularly those of us that are charged with running some of our local governments up here upstate. We've said it many times that we never got the attention that we have gotten since Governor Cuomo has had this laser-like focus on helping us in upstate New York. And as a result, Central New York is rising, and there isn't a better example of that than what's going on here. This 50-mile corridor between Syracuse and Rome is going to help us unlock $1 trillion global industry that'll attract businesses and jobs to this state. And the unmanned aerial systems technology really is the next generation of civil aviation in the United States and around the world. And it really gives me great pride to note that some of the most advanced technology in this field today exists only here in Central New York and in upstate New York. And I'm excited to be working with Governor Cuomo to double down on our efforts and send a clear message that we are all in when it comes to helping to develop these technologies for the rest of the world. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you my counterpart, Tony Pacenti from Oneida County.
Thank you, and good morning, or good afternoon, probably, I'm sorry, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you here to Oneida County, and again, to welcome our great friend and the governor of the great state of New York, Governor Cuomo, for being back here again. Thank you, Governor. And thank to all my counterparts in local government and all the businesses that join us here today. Welcome to the Griffith International Airport and to the home of the UAS test site. In 2013, the FAA designated Griffith as one of those test sites, and we've been flying high ever since because we are really thrilled to have this great opportunity. And since then, with support from New York State and from Governor Cuomo, we are expanding the growth of this systems throughout, as you've heard, Central New York and entire upstate New York. And as the governor created different avenues for us to grow in upstate, as my good friend, the county executive next door, Joni Mahoney, said, one of the things was the regional economic development councils. And we have the two council chairs, ours here in the Mohawk Valley, Larry Gilroy and Rob Simpson from Central New York and Center State. And in addition to having that great system in place that is growing the economy of upstate New York, it has brought us together even more closer than before and has really melded. And as you see up here, and as you're going to hear more about, the growth here is because of the ability for us to work together under the direction of the governor and the councils that he established, and with the great work of our good friend Howard Zemsky, who's been here quite a bit lately. Howard, I'm going to send you a tax bill because we could use the revenue, but thank you very much. So the governor's been a great friend, as you heard, of Oneida County in central New York. He understands what this technology means for the growth of so many aspects of what UAS can bring in terms of security, in terms of public safety, in terms of the flooding and other areas that we've dealt with, and in terms of a whole industry that can lead us into new paths. So again, I welcome you on behalf of Oneida County. Hats off to our airport staff that has done an outstanding job here today. And again, the governor has invested in this community time and time again, and has invested in this great partnership. So with that, it's a pleasure to have him here today, and you're going to hear from him in a little while. But first of all, please join me in welcoming Craig Marcinkowski, the Director of Strategy and Business Development at Griffin Sensors. Craig?
Thank you very much, County Executive Pacenti. It's a true honor to be here. Thank you, Governor, for being here today. A lot of what we're doing here is because of the visionary investments you've made in unmanned systems. And I'm just going to paint a quick picture from an industry perspective about why what we're doing here is unique and leading, and why we think it would bring other people to come here to the area. We talked about the test site and the great work we've done here already in Oneida County, and the great investments County Executive Pacenti's made in the airport and the infrastructure here. If you look back, UAS traffic management research and the initiative really took off with NASA about 5 years ago. We have Ron Johnson here, program manager for UTM at NASA. And the work we've done here in the region, we've collaborated with NASA on that, and now we're working with the FAA as another partner to help validate the systems we have here. But NASA's done a great job collaborating with everyone. So what are we doing here that's different than other places around the country and the other collaborators? Because NASA will work with anyone. They want UTM everywhere. That's the beauty of their program. And the vision we've put together here as a team for building out this 50-mile corridor, for building a UAS testing facility unlike any in the world, those were NASA-founded concepts. But with the visionary investments of the governor, we're actually funding real-world implementations of those here. And this corridor with the surveillance and communications infrastructure within that, there'll be nothing like that anywhere else in the world. And people will come here to test and validate their systems because it will be such a unique environment. And it won't just be a test environment. This is going to be an operational corridor. So New York State will be open for UAS business, obviously partnered with NASA and the FAA to validate and certify that system. But this place will be open for commercial UAS business. NUAIR, partnered with Griffith International Airport, NUAIR is leading implementation of the corridor. Larry Brinker, Executive Director of NUAIR, is in the back there. Thank you, Larry, for all your leadership here within NUAIR. They're a partnership of over 100 not-for-profit and for-profit companies. NUAIR will be leading out the implementation of that and bringing more people to the area. They run the test site here, one in Michigan and one in Massachusetts as well, and are going to continue to expand that footprint. But what I would like to leave you with, and we're excited to show a demonstration here in a little bit, we're already unveiling the first part of the corridor here today, but as we unveil the rest of this 50-mile corridor into 2018 and start conducting commercial operations here within that corridor, it'll be the most unique airspace for UAS traffic management in the world, thanks to the governor's visionary investments and commitments here to the region. So I'd like to welcome Governor Cuomo up to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here, and you have a lot of great elected leaders who are here. Let's give a big round of applause to two of the greatest county executives in the state of New York, Joni Mahoney and Anthony Pacenti. Let's give them a round of applause. To my colleagues from the legislature, they are very, very important because they have to pass legislation. Otherwise, the governor just talks a lot but has no legislation. And we've had a great working relationship, and they've done a great job. So let's give them a round of applause. To Craig Marcinkowski, who's doing a great job with Gryphon Sensors. Thank you, Craig, for that nice introduction. Let's give him a round of applause. And to all of you, welcome to upstate New York, as we call it. There really is no place called upstate New York. Saying upstate New York is like saying southern Florida or Northern California or Southern California. Nobody really would say, I live in Southern California. Nobody lives in upstate New York. You live in Buffalo, you live in Syracuse, you live in the Mohawk Valley, you live in Albany, but that generic term of upstate New York is not really locally identifiable. Congratulations for your interest in unmanned flight. I actually created the first drone and the concept of unmanned aircraft. I was 12 years old, and I was flying a model Cox airplane at the time. If those of you who remember, you had the Cox engines, and they made airplanes, and they made little helicopters, and they made cars. And they were on a string, and I was flying the Cox airplane, and the string broke, and the plane just took off into the wilderness and just kept going. And I said to myself at that time, if I had a string long enough attached to that plane, there is no end to the potential of what I could do with that plane and that drop-off. And I believe that's where the drone unmanned aircraft system actually started. So the potential for it, I believe, is unlimited. And the applications are only limited by our imagination. Here, County Executive Pacenti uses drones to track the flooding in areas that are happening. I just got back from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and they're using drones because they can't get to parts of Puerto Rico yet. They can't get to parts of the Virgin Islands. So they don't know if people are alive, if people are dead. They don't know what's happening with the power systems, et cetera. So they're using drones. And you can just imagine or let your imagination run wild with how many potential applications there are once the technology is really perfected. And that's why the state is investing, because we believe. And part of what governments do today is they literally invest in industries. You think you see a growth industry that has a potential for your state to create jobs, you invest in it, and you try to bring it to your state. The line between private sector and business is much vaguer than it used to be. You know, we used to say, well, private sector, they do business, government, they do regulations. If they don't do it right, they actually stymie business. There's actually much more of a synthesis now, especially in this state. Every state, every town, every city, the country is all trying to figure out the same thing. What is the business of tomorrow for this nation? What is the business of tomorrow for my state? What is the business of tomorrow for the county executive's county? Where do the jobs come from? Well, manufacturing is over. Manufacturing, you can argue, we prematurely exited, right? That was some of the trade agreements that said we're going to get out of the manufacturing business, we're going to give it overseas because we can't compete on the cost of personnel. And now the question mark has been, and what's next? Okay, we don't do manufacturing. Great, I understand that. What do we do that employs large numbers of people with good paying jobs? And this nation is going through that transition. This state is going through that transition, particularly upstate New York. Buffalo, New York was a steel town. That's what they did. generation after generation. You walk into a home in Buffalo, and the grandfather was there, and the father was there, and the son was there, and they were steel workers. And you shook their hand, and you knew they were steel workers when you shook their hand. And then overnight, steel is gone. China, elsewhere. Well, what's the new economy? Rochester, New York, Kodak, IBM, initial, at that time, research manufacturing giants. Well, what's next? So we're working through that transition. Buffalo, we're taking from a steel town to now the largest solar panel manufacturer in the hemisphere, with Tesla and Panasonic. Why? Because that background, the history in manufacturing and steel, works very well to the transition to solar panel manufacturers, et cetera. Rochester was IBM, Kodak. You have engineers, some of the pioneering work with light. We're turning it into the photonics industry of tomorrow. Albany, New York, where we actually learned an important lesson. They had great institutions of higher education, and they, before it became fashionable, became the capital for nanotechnology with a very interesting model. They built probably the finest clean room in the United States of America. At that time, it was like a $2 billion clean room. Now, all these companies that wanted to get into nanotech, small circuits, needed the clean room. You had a choice. You could either go build your own $2 billion clean room, downside of which is cost you $2 billion, or you could go to Albany as the R&D capital of nanotech and use their clean room. And that set Albany off on a new future. Where you are today, Syracuse, Mohawk Valley, we had Griffiths Air Force Base. Employed thousands and thousands and was the economic generator. 1995, overnight, it closes. Okay, what's the economy of tomorrow? And in many ways, the search has been going on since 1995. How do you come up with an economic engine that consumes that or generates that same amount of energy that Griffiths Airport did? This is an exciting possibility for us, unmanned aircraft. And we believe in it, and we invested in it. The largest test site in the country, 50 miles. Problem with my invention of the drone was you lost sight of it after about 100 yards. So I don't really know what happened to my first drone test. Ran out of fuel, I assume, somewhere, but I don't know where it is, and that was the problem with my invention. This takes my invention and perfects it, 50-mile test area, which we created with investment of $30 million. Radar system, so you can track it with an investment of about $4 million. Gryphon sensors, about $5 million investment to make that test area complete and state-of-the-art, where if you are interested in this industry, this is the place to be. And then we want to develop a cluster economy around that. To further incentivize people to come here and develop here, we're running a competition for the best ideas in the area. We call them Genius Awards, $10 million total prizes, $1 million first place prize for the best idea in unmanned aircraft. I will be competing in that. I just have to figure out that wrinkle with my Cox plane on the longer string. I'm thinking a reel of fishing line that you could hold as the plane goes, and then you could pull it back. So you're going to have real competition from me. I wouldn't lose sleep, but I'm going to be there, and I'm going to bring my game, just so you know. So we're going to be doing that as part of the overall economic context. But we're very excited. It's showing dividends already. SRC announced they're going to be creating 1,000 jobs in this area over the next 5 years. And we have very exciting news today that NASA is going to have a partnership with NUAIR, and NASA is going to be testing right here on this test ground. So we're very excited about that. I'm excited for you. I believe you are in the right space, the right industry. I believe it's an industry where you can do well from a profit point of view. I also believe that you can do good things. Being in Puerto Rico the other day and seeing real pain and despair and understanding that there's a device that could actually help save lives and help people, that's a beautiful thing. And this is an industry where you can do well and you can do good. And to me, that's the best of both worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to Mr. Ron Johnson, who's going to tell us about the NASA partnership. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Governor Cuomo. Really appreciate being invited here for this special opportunity to kick off the collaboration with NUAIR on the USAFE project. NASA has been working with the FAA, the national test sites, academia, and many industry collaborators on developing requirements and prototypes for UAS traffic management, or UTM, systems that will enable safe UAS operations in low-altitude airspace. We worked previously with the New York test site twice, once in 2016 and this past summer on testing earlier versions of the UTM system. The test site will be part of our third national campaign with more testing in the coming months. This is what the governor was just referring to. We are pleased that various efforts are happening around the U.S. in implementing the UTM construct. The UTM corridor being established here significantly extends New York's capabilities. It will be a major flight range where advanced, beyond visual line of sight UAS operations can take place, while ensuring that safety is maintained by detecting the presence of manned and unmanned vehicles and keeping them away from each other. Our agreement with NUAIR will allow us to collaborate on UTM research and development for managing complex air traffic scenarios and explore new concepts for integrating flight operators, service suppliers, and FAA systems. Many different applications will be tested here, including public safety operations, search and rescue, which we've seen, infrastructure inspections, precision agriculture, and package delivery. And there are new applications being thought up every day. The data and knowledge we gain from this collaboration will be fed back to the FAA for their system designs, operational procedures, and regulatory policies. It will also be transferred to industry for building on their innovative approaches to UAS operations and vehicle design in this emerging area of aviation. We're also excited about the development here of the NUSTAR capabilities. This is the UAS standardized testing and rating system. We have valuable lessons that we've learned, and sharing them will benefit standing up this important capability here. NASA is also beginning to support safety, certification, and airspace access and community acceptance issues associated with urban air mobility. This is where 1 to 4 passengers would travel through electric vertical takeoff vehicles to local destinations. Enabling urban air mobility is the next step of using drones in urban airspace. New York's UTM corridor could also serve as a testing location on safely enabling the urban air mobility operations. So we are very pleased with New York's investment here in USAFE. We look forward to our work with NUAIR and other FAA test sites, the FAA, academia, and industry partners to really enable this exciting new industry. Thank you.
Today in the announcement about that partnership between NASA and NUAIR here is really groundbreaking for the work we're going to be doing on USAFE going forward. So thank you again for making the trip from Mountain View, California to be here with us today. We're now going to get into the second demonstration of the day. This is an airport incursion scenario, once again, where we're going to highlight the low altitude drone detection capability around this airport. Last year alone, there were 1,600 reported incursions of drones around airports, and that's just what was reported, despite the fact that there's regulation out there that you're not allowed to fly a drone within 5 nautical miles of an airport, and there are also geofencing systems on most of the craft out there. So it's a real issue out there. I'd like to applaud the FAA for the work that they've been doing in that area. They conducted a Pathfinder program last year. Griffin Sensors was fortunate to be one of the companies involved, where they evaluated detection capabilities around airports for drones, and they're doing more research in that area right now. What we have back here on the screen, and this is a live demo, this is all live feeds from the sensors and instrumentation we have on the ground. Up here on the left is our Sapphire display from AX Enterprises, where they're integrating all the live sensors at Griffiths onto one nice common operating picture. And the scenario that we're going to go through here is basically we have a general aviation aircraft. This is its flight pattern here. You see the blue. And this is live tracking data right now. So the yellow circle you see up here, that's cooperative ADS-B data. That's that aircraft transponding out, here I am. The very unique capability we have at the airport here is this pink circle. That's the R1400 radar, which you see over here, which several have been deployed here around the airport already. That can detect very small drones around airports. Traditional FAA systems around airports today, they're not designed to detect and track small drones. They're designed to see large planes at high altitudes. You know, from the movies, you always hear like, oh, he's flying under the radar, he's below the deck. Typically, these low, slow-flying drones, traditional air traffic radars, just aren't designed to see them. What we have down here in this scenario is there's going to be a drone over in this area that's going to pop up unannounced. Basically, this plane coming in on approach is not going to know about this traffic here. Okay, look, I think we just went live here with that drone going up in the air, and you could see that detection happening there with the radar. These strobes that you see on the screen here as well, that's another unique capability that's been deployed around this airport. It's called direction finding or RF detection. These sensors are picking up the communication downlinks coming off of that craft. So we have basically 2 sensors right now that are detecting this drone that's not supposed to be around an airport. And I think something that's really of importance to the audience and group here, this is live data tracking a drone around an airport right now. I don't believe this capability exists at any other airport in the world. So we can see our general aviation aircraft. He's coming in upon final approach. He's planning to land here at the airport. And what we have over here, I'm sorry I didn't really talk about this display yet. I'm so excited about what we have capability-wise here at Griffiths. This is going to be what would be traditionally seen in the FAA tower, or the type of data that they would have displayed. Once again, you don't see any of this non-cooperative data from the drone down here. We're just seeing the track coming in for the plane. So we're coming in on final approach. With the instrumentation that we have here to detect and track this drone, this is the type of call that would come in from the tower. It would basically be 32 Juliet, Griffiths Tower, unidentified traffic, you're 12 o'clock, 1 mile, recommend right turn to the west. So based on that world-leading unique air picture we have here, the tower would be able to radio in that command to this pilot who's planning to land at the airport right now and avert a potential catastrophic collision with an unknown pop-up drone within its approach path. Now we can see the call. It was a great call from the tower. You could see him coming off here, and that's a basic scenario for how you could use this data in the situation room. And you could think of a bunch of other scenarios here, whether it's critical infrastructure protection around nuclear power plants, government facilities, prisons, but the ability to detect these very hard to see non-cooperative drones is a leading capability we have here in the region. And with the investment from the governor in partnership with Oneida County to have this deployed at this airport and to be able to test and validate here, once again, a world-leading capability here that we just saw a live demonstration of. With that, I will bring up County Executive Pacenti.
Let's give another round of applause to Craig from Griffin Sensors. Outstanding, and Governor, I think between that and we know we have the Eastern Air Defense Sector, we may be able to find your drone, at some point. But thank all of you. First of all, thank all of you for being here today and for continuing this endeavor and this work. Thanks to Greg and Ron and your work, Howard, all of our partners, Roanne, everyone, my partners in government. Thanks to Joni for the great partnership that our two regions have in moving this corridor, and thanks, most importantly, to the governor, who continues to invest. When we have new technologies, new ways, new areas of growth, of enterprise, of job creation in upstate New York. For the Mohawk Valley and Central New York, this is groundbreaking, and when it reaches those heights, it'll be started here, and Governor, with your help and with your direction, that's what's going to make this the greatest area for drones, for UAS, for all this testing that takes place throughout the world is going to start right here in New York State. And Governor, we thank you for it. Thank all of you, please. Again, on behalf of Oneida County and Onondaga and Central New York and Mohawk Valley, thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day and continue the great work that's being done here. Thank you.